Hey Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been a long week, but it's been good.
Yeah.
Lots been going on.
Yeah, you're still in New York, aren't you?
I am, yes. I am in Manhattan currently. Been here since essentially a year ago today, um, thereabouts. And yeah, that's kind of where I've been. I grew up in Brooklyn, lived a bunch of different places, but just moved back, and am here for the foreseeable future.
Nice, nice. So tell everybody kind of a background on yourself and kind of like how you grew to love film.
Okay, sure. I will try not to be too rambly with this. So as I kind of said, I grew up in New York. I lived in a few places, but was born and raised essentially in Brooklyn. I was diagnosed at 6 with a auditory processing disorder, kind of ADD, stuff like that, which I very much had a learning deficiency in when it came to reading and writing. Um, so the written word and like reading and stuff like that was always very hard for me to comprehend. Well, visually, I was much more of a visual learner, and my parents loved films growing up, so they showed me a bunch of stuff. They showed me Star Wars one day, and I kind of got hooked from there, and I really gained a passion for visual storytelling and stuff like that. Eventually I got to a point where I wanted to tell these stories. I wanted to make these visual stories, and more as also a way to communicate as well ideas that I had in my life, and stuff that I was experiencing, feeling, since I couldn't really communicate it that well verbally. So that's kind of what I started doing. I just found a camcorder and I started filming, and eventually I had to learn how to edit, and I gained a very deep appreciation from editing because I felt that it was almost like writing a word in a way. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the way that I was kind of attributed to how I always approach editing is a kind of like you're building it. It's kind of like out of Legos. If you consider each picture a different piece, you're kind of building, taking all these small elements to build this beautiful sculpture, essentially. And that's kind of how I viewed it, growing up into this day. And eventually, I realized that that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do it professionally. I felt like I was good at it, and I did training and I did studying. Took college courses for it, and now I'm currently working as a post PA at Nomad Editorial, with aspirations to do more editorial, go assistant editor and then full editor. I also do have a deep passion for directing. And that is something I also want to learn as well, though I had this speech impediment that is kind of something I have trained out of. And I do like directing, I like communicating in that way now. So that is also an aspiration of mine, but that's currently where I'm at.
Awesome. Like, so what all does Nomad do? They're obviously based out of New York.
Yeah, we have locations in multiple different places. We just opened an Austin office, and that's been getting a lot of popularity. A lot of people have been going to Austin lately. But we also have an LA office, we have a Japan office, we have a London office. Um, Mainly, what we do is we are a post production house. So essentially, we do a lot more commercials than filmmaking. Generally, farmer work. Sky Rizzy is one of our biggest clients, as well as UPMC. And essentially, what we do is we host them at our location. They hire some of our editors, the producers at Nomad, kind of work on transfer money and like production and stuff like that. And they'll come in, view the cuts, give notes, and it's just a back and forth, like a general production. A little bit different because a lot of the time you're dealing with more corporate minded people and people who are not in the visual arts medium. So that's definitely comes with its own ways of how have to approach communication and how you have to get those notes. But a lot of what I do there is I'm vault. I'm a very much entry level position.
Mm-hmm.
I basically archive all our stuff because we do jobs. We've been doing jobs since like forever. I like the longest date I believe I have is 2015 in the archive. So a lot of what I do is, we only have so much shared storage space. We only have so much cloud space. We only have so much hard drives, that a lot of what we do is we write things to tape, like physical tape, so that they can be restored later if
Oh
we end
wow.
up needing that. Yeah. So a lot of what I do is I just put things to tape and I archive it and make sure that we have documentation of our main things. And if we need to send out hard drives to people in different post-production houses or productions or people in the city or through the country or the world, I'm in charge of sending those out and keeping track of them. I'm also in charge of posting stuff to people's reels and stuff like that. It's also a position that at a certain point now, I would hope, but I also have this feeling that they're kind of, I'm in the room with the assistants all the time. So I'm learning everything they're doing, and they kind of sometimes give me tasks to do while they're super busy. And that provides an excellent learning opportunity. But yeah, they're super nice. They're super great. I obviously have aspirations to do more film stuff, and they do some short film stuff, and they've, I believe, done one feature that I'm very aware of. One of their partners did the David Bowie documentary,
Oh yeah.
edited it. They're actually doing a screening of it, not my company, but a theater called the Metrograph here in New York, that they're doing a screening of it with the director. So that's a really fun coincidence that that's kind of happening. But yeah, obviously, I want to do more virtual, I want to do more storytelling stuff in the future. But as a stopping off point and as just a place to learn, it's been great.
That's awesome. I'm really happy that you kind of found some place that you're happy doing the day to day stuff, and especially so soon out of school. I mean, isn't it crazy? It was a year ago today that was graduation, and it's been a very fast year. So
It doesn't feel like a year because I luckily got my job in August, so I essentially had all of summer. Um, it feels weird to me because I'm still working on projects, as you know, of since college that I'm still working on and desperately trying to finish to move on to new things. But it's weird. Like I got the job in August, and it's just been work every day, and it's been interesting to adopt a oh, we're in the real world now, and I got to focus on budget and jobs and all this stuff, and it's pain in the butt. I don't know if I can swear on this, so I'll try to keep my vocabulary as PG as possible. I'll try. Um, it's a lot, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity. I very happy when I got it. That was through some connections that I made. But yeah, no, it's been a really fast year. It doesn't feel like it. It's only hitting me now that it's been a year, but weeks go by really slowly during the day, and then you just want them to speed up because 10 hours of a day of work is not fun.
sure. Well, Connor, I'm a huge fan of yours, especially your project. I'll let you kind of more talk about it, but I see it as your background there. Do you want to kind of talk about, quarantine?
Yeah, my white whale, as we could just call it that. So you know this story, but for the people listening, in 2019, as this would have been our second year of college, generally we do pitch projects to the faculty to try to get them made down the line. I pitched a project, it did not go through. I really wanted to direct something using the school's money. And I had been taking the immersive class, which was dealing a lot with VR and animation, 3D animation, and mainly using video game technologies, Unreal, to kind of tell stories. And we had this entire new motion capture stage built. And I had an idea for a story. I wanted to do animation. I wanted to not be limited so much by the physical space. So I pitched this idea called Quarantine, which, to kind of put it into really short, how it was pitched and how it is now, it's about a robotic nurse taking care of a patient in quarantine, and they're in a quarantine situation. Except while the robot is taking care of the patient, they slowly realize that their patient isn't the one in quarantine, they are. And it has a lot to do with AI. It has a lot to do with control. It has a lot to do, with disease management and control, and just humanity and like euthanasia and stuff like that. And I wrote this script in 2016, 19, and pitched it then, wrote it over the winter break. We were going to film it in March 2020. And then the world kind of went to shit because we entered our own pandemic. And I was like, okay, I now really have to make this film. We have basically everything set. So as soon as we got back to college, I got to direct the actors on the motion capture stage. It was super good, but we had to do it all in like 6 feet apart with the actors. We had to take every precaution.
Right,
It
right.
was a very interesting experience. It was a very fun experience, but it was a very interesting solving experience. But that presented some problems in putting it together in the animation. And then kind of the feeling set in that I was like, oh, I'm not an animator at all. I know the program, but I had to basically learn the program. And I was a one-man team kind of doing this, trying to put together this 20-minute 3D animation film and piecemealing it out to other people who had no idea what they were doing,
Yeah.
and giving a lot of the help to the wonderful teaching assistants and people who did not use the program when they were available. So it's been kind of this piecemeal thing. It doesn't help that, I also had college, I also had school, and started to get burnt out on the project at multiple points, and it kind of just dipped. Um, and it's been this long road to the. I never thought I was going to be this long, but it's been a passion because it's been this story that I've wanted to tell, especially I
Mhm.
feel like it needs to be told. And even if it doesn't end up the way that I 100% wanted it to, I think at this point I could say it's going to be really beautiful. It's going to be a really amazing experience to show this, and have it been something that was made in this time, and it also still being somewhat relevant, not even just with us coming off the pandemic, but also AI, which was the other weird connection that this has kind of created in current days. So I think it's still very relevant. And it's been a passion for basically 3 years now,
Yeah.
slowly trying to get it done. Um, it sucks that it's taken this long, and it sucks it's taken me this long, but I can honestly say now we are very close. It's going to be coming out very soon. We're hoping not the end of the month, but that's kind of when I hope I'm done with all my stuff. And we're going to be making a lot of final decisions, getting it colored, and then I got to get to share it with everyone. And regardless of how it's perceived, I'm going to be very proud of it because it's some of the best work I've done directorially, and the all the amazing people I got to work on this project, who I can comfortably say are people I'm going to be working with post this project. I've already been starting to prep writing a new one with some of these people, and we're going to be not doing 3D animation, but we are going to be doing stuff. But the amount of stuff I also learned from this project, I think we can go into it later, was immense. And learning Unreal and learning these new technologies that are beneficial for someone in post to learn is of anything will be entirely beneficial.
That's awesome. I mean, it takes a long time to get anything perfect, especially in animation, right? And I mean, I remember seeing some of just even the rough cuts in the very early stages of the project, and they were just as amazing. I mean, that final scene, I won't spoil it for anybody, but is just really well performed. It really translates to the 3D models, and yeah, I'm excited to see like the finished product.
Yeah, no, that last scene alone is, every time I watch it, is the one of the key reasons why I keep on working on this, because it is something that worked out really well
Yeah,
on its
absolutely.
own as well. So but there's a lot of details that I didn't consider that I was going to have to work on, and I was semi warned about it, but I was like, I'll figure it out. um Picking up items is a pain. I'll just say that. Picking up and putting down takes some time, but I'm extremely excited to show it to people and then move on to the next thing, because I've got a pretty funny idea that I want to start getting work on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back on when you're close with that project as well. Hopefully, not quite as many years this
This
time,
time,
but if it's
no, no, no. Yeah, look, it's gonna be what, 2030? No, 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 no.
if it takes that long, if it takes that long to be perfect, then so be it.
Let's not. Yeah, and about perfection. Like right now, one of the things I'm mainly looking on is we're trying to lock face animation, because we had to bring someone to fix it, and it looks much better than it did now, like 1,000 times better. But the sync's off, and this guy's been working on it for like 3 months now, and it's the question of like, do I ask him to do more, or are we gonna just say this is pretty good? That's something
Hmm.
I'm currently considering right now. Like, where do we draw the line at a certain point? And is this something that could be fixed with the mix? Is stuff like that. So those are kind of things that I'm looking at right now. But yeah, no, we're getting close, and I'll let you know about the next one once it's not written yet. But once it is, then hopefully we'll have a better idea of how we're going to proceed with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Do you have any advice to somebody who may be in your shoes, um, or at least your shoes when you first started this project and just kind of like figuring out how to get it made?
Huh. So I had the very big like fortunate opportunity that there was a professor who believed in me, who gave me
Mm-hmm.
money for this project, and I have not talked to them in over a year. um, a little bit out of like I've said that it's going to be done. I said it was going to be done 2 years ago. Um, I was wrong. I did not put in nearly enough time for it to be done around that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because you can ask the studio for more money, but you can't ask the professor most times.
and it was never a thing about giving more money. It just was time, and the amount of time and manpower that was going to be needed from me was not something I think I was perfectly prepared for. However, I think this is one of the something that was really amazing about this project is I didn't get the pitch. I didn't get my film made within the confines of the system that was already there. I had to go through backroom channels and like pitch this project and go through unorthodox methods of getting a project made. So I would say like for someone not necessarily just wanting to do 3D animation, I think mainly just for getting a project done, there's a perceived notion that there's only one way you're going to have to do it, but that is a lie. You can, if you are passionate about, do it on your own, or just keep on trying to find an angle. There is a path for you. If you don't get that pitch the first time, if you don't get the thing, your passion and your determination and the grit, and it might take a while, but there will be a way to get that thing made, to get that thing done. So I think it's just never giving up and getting back up. I think this is one of the biggest things about this project was it's the result of me saying, I want to make something. I didn't get this pitch. I have this idea. I'm going to kind of go on the unofficial channels and do it. And that's kind of what this thing became.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still support from this from UNCSA. I recently talked to the dean of interest in wanting to hear how progress is going. So there is still some buy-in from the school, which is amazing. It's good to know that I can hopefully show it there, and kind of bring a full circle to everything that I did there, but also get to show it to festivals and stuff like that, and just show that and feel like that this is something I made. This is something that I made with a bunch of wonderful people. But it was all about just going through angles and not stepping on anyone's shoes per se, but going through unorthodox methods and not giving up. As for like a 3D animated film, if you wanted to do 3D animation, Unreal is a really cool program in the sense that it's kind of like Premiere. There's a lot of guides, there's a lot of tutorials about it. They're fairly long, but there is a lot of great resources online to learn them and also just playing with them. I think that if you're going to want to make a film, make like a 1 minute first. Definitely test it, and understand how hard certain things are going to be. The technology has changed where it's become much easier if you're using the most up to date version in technologies. I'm on old stuff, but using newer technologies, it's becoming much easier to do these projects now. So yeah, entry level is really just about taking time. It's all about time. It's all about learning. As I know, it's about a drive to want to do these things.
Absolutely. I think you touched on something super important, even for somebody who doesn't even know where to start and they just have a camcorder, like you were talking about, just shooting whatever you can and seeing how it cuts together and how you can tell a story out of it, right? Even if it is just 1 minute. So, what were some of those things that you kind of shot, kind of testing things out? I would run around with my friends, through the neighborhoods, just shooting whatever we could on the playground, just even people riding their bikes. I remember sitting out of the back of my, I think it was my friend's mom's car, and I don't advise this, out of the trunk, and just like holding a camera just as somebody was riding their bike towards me, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought I had made it. I was like, give me my Oscar right now. But uh,
No,
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I had very similar. situations. I don't think I ever did anything in a car because a lot of the places I was filming was not with people. Like I live like an hour away from school growing up. When in high school and middle school, I moved to Florida, um, which was fun. I say that sarcastically. I'm not a fan of Florida, but a lot of those things I did was just like stop motion stuff. I did like stuff with puppets a lot.
Yeah.
I was very introverted growing up, but yeah, stuff like that, and just playing around and just being dumb with a camera is, that's a lot of like where I think you find your passion and stuff like that. But it's also something you just got to do. Obviously, be safe. There's always be safe. Safety is one of the most important things in filming, but yeah, just have fun, honestly.
How do you keep up that fun and that creativity, when you're working day to day so frequently and staying passionate about a project years into it?
It's hard. I'm not gonna say that. As I've said, like I've had points where I've kind of just stopped working on it because I've gotten burnt out, and I was questioning like, why the fuck am I working on something this long? I don't have anybody who's helping me with any of this stuff. I kind of have to figure out my own, and then I come back to it, and I have different thoughts about what we want to do. And I mean, the picture has been locked on this project for years because I wanted to get this done a year ago.
Hmm.
That was the idea, is this would be done a year ago, and we're still not there. A lot of it's because I got a job, and 10 hours work days doesn't really equate time you're going to want to put in and stare more at a screen. And it's hard. There's moments where you kind of need to take a break and you kind of need to do it. And especially if you're working on something super long, like super, super long, you're going to feel burnt out. And you can get into this position where you're either need to drop the project or you keep on going with it, and sometimes that's not the best thing. Sometimes that just you're changing it more than it needs to be and revisiting. It's kind of like the apocalypse now syndrome of like you did the project but then you keep on going back to it and fixing it, or you've semi-fixed the project but you need to do more for VFX, but now you want to go back and change this. I think there's always going to be moments where it's like it's hard to keep the passion up. It's hard to do that stuff, and I don't think taking a break is a necessarily bad thing. I think like if you're with a bunch of people on a project, that passion kind of becomes an echo chamber. And when you're forced to talk to people about the project, I find that helps re-engage me with it again, and be like, okay, yeah, no, we're speaking creative lingo here, and we're getting that energy back. And I think that is how you keep that energy, is really working with your team. I think if you're on your own, it sucks, and that's one of the biggest things with this project is I'm not on my own. But it was a lot of stuff on this project with just working on Unreal by myself that really made it lonely. Like I didn't, a lot of my people didn't know how to use this. I was kind of doing it for them and showing it, and that kind of it wasn't as fun for me. So that's why I
Sure.
want to do, like, if I'm going to do this again, I want to work with people who do know the technology a bit more as well. Not to say that the people I'm currently working with are not great. They're amazing people, and I want to work with them on this next project. But this next one's going to be live action, and that's something that they're a little bit more trained in. This was always going to be like an experiment and see how this goes type thing, and then it kind of just became, okay, we need to do this now. But yeah, I think it's like collaboration is what really keeps you going, because if you're doing it by yourself, you could so easily drop it when
Hmm.
you're bored, and then you could pick it up. But you can always re-pick it up, but it depends on if you're working by yourself but also with people. Like that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, you can always recharge and refuel, but if you lose momentum, then you lose the project. I feel like.
Yeah, no, I think exactly, and I think it's like taking a day is fine. It's always dependent. I think it depends on your production schedule. I think it depends on the project. It's not an easy thing to answer, but I think it is natural to feel burnt out. But I think that if you're continuing to find enjoyment, especially when you're talking to others about it, that is that is the key.
Hmm. So, kind of what you were starting to touch on, where do you see yourself, in 10 years? What do you want to do with your career? I know you mentioned more live action, but still staying in the realm of doing animation, 3D, VFX stuff, just related projects like that.
Um, that's something I was kind of wondering about. Like, for instance, a lot like in between doing this project, it took a while. I directed it. I'm not editing quarantine. I did some other editing projects. One of them was a 2D animated film that I edited that and sound designed, and it was a really fun experience. I think sound designing that film was amazing. It ended up getting into a festival, which was great. Um, that was kind of my thesis essentially, but I've also been working on editing documentary stuff for a guy up in LA and some other stuff. Like there was stuff I was doing in the background. As for like future plans, like to go off of that, the question is like, am I going to be doing more? What am I going to be focusing on my attention and creatively at the moment? I think I want to go back to live action. I miss, especially want to direct another live action film. I would love to edit another animated film or just live action. I would love to edit more like shorts and stuff like that. But I don't know if I'm going full in on animation at the current moment. I think that I've been just working on this project for so long. If I get an opportunity and it's great, then I might reconsider. But I want to play within live action again before I commit to animation or 3D animation. However, to that point, I think a lot of what we're going to see is kind of a blending of the two. I think there's a
Mm.
lot of this technology is going to be used in live action. I think, like especially there's, for instance, I've become aware of a new product that it's currently in the alpha, but essentially applies a motion capture skeleton on top of a real person, just like if you
Mm-hmm.
film on your iPhone, and
Mm-hmm.
puts a 3D animation model over it, and also gets the face capture at the same time, and you can adjust the keyframes of the animation that was recorded essentially on just in the world body movements, and it's all using AI technology. And I think like what we're going to see is a blending of some of that stuff in the post field. And that was why I was talking about why I think the stuff that I learned is going to be very useful in the future. Um, but, I don't know if I'm going to be editing animation. I don't know if I'm going to be editing live action. I want to go back into live action, but for 10 years, I would love to either be like editing, like being an editor, or directing on the side. I might be an assistant when I'm in my 30s. Still at that point, I would love to either be at that point when I'm starting to I've edited a few features and maybe starting to move into that. Or, if I direct a project and it takes off, then I'll definitely go the directing route. But editing is one of those things I enjoy a lot of. I think I'm good at it. I think there's always a demand for it. So that's kind of one of my hopes is just I'm still making films, I'm still editing films, I'm still working in the creative position, or if I'm working more in a more commercialized industry, I want to be still working on shorts and features on the side. Is kind
Yeah.
of where I see myself in 10 years.
That's awesome. I think that's definitely a great goal, and you're extremely talented. I think you won't have a problem, getting there. I know we had a conversation the other day, kind of about not getting too ahead of ourselves and putting so much pressure to have a career behind us already.
Yeah, no, that was something that I kind of realized very early on. There's always a mentality when you come into college that you need to have the biggest job out of it. And like, oh, look at me, I'm an assistant already. Oh, look at me, I'm doing all this stuff for Lucasfilms. And like, I know people who did that, and I'm extremely happy for those people. I'm also extremely happy I got a job when I did, because I know there's a lot of people who didn't. Um, but essentially, it isn't as much of a rush as you think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've been hearing from everyone at work, everyone I meet in networking, is it's more of a sprint. There is a need, and I think on a directorial side, there is a need that you need to start making a name for yourself as soon as possible. From an editorial side, though, and just in general, it's a sprint. That doesn't mean that you should stop being creative when you do, but it's a marathon. It isn't like you need to get there the fastest. It's like, what route are you going to take? And there's a bunch of different ways to take that route. And that's what I've always found is there isn't always one path to get a film made. There isn't one path to make it. There is multiple paths, and it's a marathon. It's going to take some time. You're not going to get there immediately. There will be some trouble along the way, but never stop being passionate, but always be aware that it's not going to be the make or break.
I think you said it perfectly. That's great advice for anybody doing anything in the film industry or even remotely related. So, well, Connor, it was great catching up with you. It's good to see you as always. Really, really great conversation. Just kind of about everything from your animated project to what you're working on, and I hope everybody checks out your stuff and keeps a lookout for Quarantine to be released soon. I'll link all of Connor's information below. But thank you again so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to show this project, and I can't wait to kind of put more of my stuff out there soon. I think once it's done there, you're going to see a lot of other stuff I've been working on. So I'm extremely excited to kind of put that on the world. And thank you so much for having me on here. It's been really fun to talk about this and kind of just catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again sometime.
All right.